What's going on, everybody? It's the Bearded One back with another beer review. And I just want to say happy Baltic Porter Day. That is every January 18th, for those of you that don't know. And I'm going to be celebrating Baltic Porter Day with Berserker mode from Southern Prohibition Brewing out of Hattiesburg, Mississippi. And obviously, it is a Baltic Porter. Oh, one more thing. Marketing. We always got to look at these labels. I've already uploaded the review to their Imperial Brown Ale, Sea Lord. So check that out if you're interested in Southern Prohibition Brewing. I've kind of been a pseudo fan for a month or two now. I think their marketing is great, and it's exciting to get into their beer and trying to find that one beer that I just fall in love with, which I'm okay if I fall in love with more than one beer from this brewery. It's been sitting out for quite a while, so I think it may be a little too warm. I doubt it, but we'll just have to see. I also wanted to come into this video with a lot of information on the Baltic Porter. I just feel like for this kind of video, I would need to bring my A game as far as my knowledge. And so I listened to the Jamil show. For those of you who don't know, Jamil Zainashev, the head brewmaster of Heretic Brewing. I do have a video uploaded of one of their beers. One of his beers, I should say. Let me get adjusted. All right. And he does a podcast on the Brewing Network called The Jamil Show. I know it's a creative name. Where did he ever get it from? But it's kind of like a BJCP study guide almost. He used to be a judge. He'll take a style, go over the history of it, go over the specs of it, to brew it within style, and then he'll go over 30 more minutes of a story or some history or whatever. And I clicked on his Baltic Porter episode to kind of get some information this episode, and he said the origins of this beer are relatively unknown. They believe it's a hybrid between the Imperial Stout and the Robust Porter. As a side note, the Stout originally started out as just a stout porter. And then over time, as Jamil put it in the podcast, things began to mellow out, and this kind of a hybrid beer called the Baltic Porter kind of came into existence somewhere. As he also put it, no one just woke up and said, I'm going to brew a Baltic Porter. It just kind of came into existence organically. And so that's all I really have about that. Came out like motor oil, so it's not really brown like porters. It's really black even when I put it up to the light. There's sediment floating around in here, which I'm okay with. There's no highlights or nothing, just really black. The head dissipated pretty quick, and there's like nothing here except for just like a very thin rim around the cup. And I would also like to say this beer is 8.5%, so I wouldn't just go chugging these all day long. Coffee is the first thing that hits my nose. I think the coffee seems to be the centerpiece of the aroma, and then kind of around it, kind of accenting that coffee would be a very delicate chocolate aroma. I'm getting some roast in here, but it's not really, I don't really feel like I'm getting the malt. I'm just getting like roasty characteristics, nothing bready, nothing else really. So you'll just have to forgive me. I'm really just getting coffee, an accented chocolatey aroma, and then the typical roast. But again, nothing else. And we'll get into the best part of a beer review. So I like the palate a lot better already. The coffee isn't so huge and pungent as I was worried it was going to be. FYI, I'm not a coffee drinker, so these porters and stouts are kind of hard to get through sometimes. I'm noticing the body is light medium, leaning towards medium, and I hate sounding that technical. I feel like it sounds a little silly to say stuff like that, but I just can't quite give it a medium viscosity because the water kind of comes through in a refreshing way. I hate kind of talking about the water because it's so common in beer to judge things for being watered down, especially as a craft beer fan in general. So I hate bringing up the water, but I feel like sometimes it's a good thing for the water to kind of come through in a beer. And in this case, I like it, and it feels refreshing when I'm drinking it. And on that note, the mouthfeel is relatively thin. Of course, the viscosity in the body. And there's not a lot of carbonation going on here. So it is smooth, for sure. It's not a rough drinking beer at all. Yeah, there's just a lot of cohesiveness between that coffee and the cocoa. Now, I wouldn't say it's chocolatey like a candy bar. It definitely tastes more like a dark chocolate cocoa, but it makes for a cohesive, I don't want to say display, because that's not the right word I'm going for. Just some more cohesiveness, I guess. It just makes the play between that cocoa, which is more of a dark cocoa, and that coffee, with whatever coffee they used, work together well. It's not real muddled and hard to pick out, or it doesn't subdue any of the flavor. So there's not a lot of hop presence in this. With it being a porter, I didn't expect a lot of hop presence. There is kind of a drying quality to the finish as well, as I'm sitting here sipping on it and contemplating my life. I think I've touched all the bases. We'll go through one more sip and I'll kind of go through everything in my head, and then we'll go for a grading and probably a reference. Okay, one more time. I think I picked up on something, and I just want to be sure that it's there. I think it's there, but you just really have to be looking for it. And I feel like my brain kind of registered it on accident. So I just wouldn't be surprised if anybody else drank this beer and they didn't pick this up at all, or maybe it was something different. But Baltic Porters can be estery with a fruity presence. And I feel like there's just a touch of dark fruit in here. Not enough for me to describe it to you, but I just feel like there's a light, very light estery quality, at least for what I can pick up and what my brain can register. Overall, I like this beer. It's a pretty good beer for what it is, anyways. For something called Berserker mode, it feels pretty tame. I feel like the marketing and the beer didn't necessarily line up. It doesn't feel like a huge, humongous guy, you know. There's this angry guy on the can, and the beer is just kind of calm and smooth and easy drinking, and they covered up that 8.5% very well. No burn, I can't smell it. I don't even think. Okay, there's a little bit of alcohol legs on here, but it's just not a lot of alcohol legs. But yeah, that alcohol, that 8.5%, is very subdued. The coffee's not powerful, so that's a plus for me. There's not enough chocolate in my opinion. Well, they use cocoa nibs, so I was kind of hoping for something a little sweeter, and they went for something a little more bitter to kind of just round out the beer, I guess, which is fine. I think again that cohesiveness between the cocoa and the coffee plays well. And then I think I'm registering that esteriness, so that's cool, I guess. One more sip, and I will finally decide on a grade. I feel like this beer was made well. So I'm going to be a tad generous with the rankings, being that I don't prefer this beer anyways. So when it comes to styles I don't prefer, I tend to be a little more objective instead of just ranking based off personal preference. So I'm going to give this 3.75 out of 5. I think it's a B plus beer. You coffee beer lovers, your stouts, and your robust porters, and your Baltic Porter lovers, you guys may enjoy this a heck of a lot more than I would. Excuse me. To me, a beer like this is just a novelty. I picked this up specifically just for Baltic Brew Day. Because again, I don't like coffee, so you'll have to forgive me for being harsh on this beer, or harsher than you would if you really enjoy this beer. I still like Southern Prohibition Brewing. I'm still going to explore more beer for them. In fact, if you watched my announcement video, I have a stout from them coming up in a couple of weeks, so stay tuned for that. Until next time, guys. Oh, and as always, please like, unlike, subscribe, unsubscribe, comment, leave hate mail, whatever it is that you do that, please. It's much appreciated, and makes me feel like people are paying attention to what I'm doing in my hobby, and it makes it feel more worthwhile. So until next time, guys, cheers.